Hey folks, Nick here from Another BookTube channel, and today I'm going to be showing you how I restored this 1903 edition of Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. I found this at a thrift shop in upstate New York. It is really beat up, and I thought that it would be a really fun project to tackle to try to restore and give some new life to this 122-year-old book. As you can see, it is really worse for wear. The cover's not in great shape. On the inside, pages are loose. You'll see it's completely detached at the spine, so the text block is just sitting in there loose. The glue is wearing thin a little bit, but the sewing is actually pretty fine. The first signature, it's a little bit loose there, but that's nothing that some glue won't fix. You got some torn pages here, and like I said, you got some loosies as well. So I'm going to see what I can do. It's my first time really trying to tackle something this old. And if you don't know my channel and you just go through like book binding YouTube and you watch like 4 Keys Book Arts or DAS bookbinding, you might be used to a higher quality of bookbinding. I think I'm pretty good, but I'm nowhere at the level of those guys. So lower your expectations a little bit and let's get started. The first thing that I did was I put those loose pages back where they belonged, and I did glue the spine. I did that off camera. I forgot to record it, so this is off to a tremendous start. But now we are at a stage where I'm going to try to mend some of these pages that are torn. I got some transparent mending tissue from Lineco. It is advertised as something that is it's acid free, and it's supposed to be transparent. It says virtually disappears on the back of it. I wanted to give it a shot, and I mean you'll see the results here. It comes in like this roll of tape that has a non-adhesive backing. You've got to just cut it to the size that you want. That's what I'm checking here. I forgot to turn off autofocus for some of these early portions, so apologies. That is just going to keep unfocusing or focusing on my shoulder. So I cut it to size, and I'm going to get it in place here. And all it says is to just burnish once it's applied. Just burnish with a bone folder. I'm using mine here. I have a really crappy, cheap plastic folder. It's not a real bone folder. I ordered a bone folder, but it didn't arrive in time, and I was impatient and I wanted to do this project. So here I am, just trying to burnish it and get it to kind of blend in with the page. And this is where my first mistake came in. This is something, yeah, there you go, boom. So I was going back and forth rubbing, and I accidentally pulled on the page back inward, and it kind of bent it up a little bit. But it really didn't do too much damage. Honestly, the pages were already so brittle and torn that it didn't add any, or it didn't remove any more value from the book as it is. But you can see it's not exactly transparent. I imagine if the pages were truly still white, it might be a little bit better. You see I've added a few more pieces here. If it's far away, if you don't really look too closely, I guess it does kind of blend in. And maybe over time, it'll itself fade and become just more natural to the page. But it does kind of stand out. Giving up on the tears for a little while, I'm working on my end papers here. I picked some end papers that looked kind of travel-y. I don't know, they look like notes that someone would keep in a journal or like a postcard, something like that. And hey, it's Gulliver's Travels, right? So I picked something that looked travel-y. That's just just what I try to do. I try to find something on theme. We're folding the end papers in half to get ready to cut them down to size. And what's interesting is, again, if this was like, 4 Keys Book Arts, he probably would have taken the sewing out of this and, redone every signature and included the end papers as sewn end papers. I'm not doing all that. I'm not messing with these very brittle pages more than I have to. I am going to tip these on with PVA glue. So I'm just measuring, and I'm going to try to get the the edge of it tucked into the natural shoulder that's still there, because the shoulder is still intact on the book spine. So that's what I'm going to be going for. Got my my straight edge cutter. I love this thing, man. If you're into bookbinding, if you're like starting out, get yourself a straight edge cutter. It's going to save you so much time and effort. I wish I had a bigger one. I wish I had like a paper guillotine that could cut through like reams at a time. But even just having this one that helps me keep a straight edge on end papers, love it. Absolutely essential tool for a binder. Checking the height now, marking that off. There's my shoulder. Got a great shot of my shoulder that I hope you enjoyed. Back to the straight edge cutter. Oh, so satisfying. It's really satisfying. It's a lot of fun. Bookbinding's fun, guys. I hope if this is like, if you're just starting out in the hobby and you're like, oh, I don't know if I could do this, you could do it, and it's so much fun to do too. Just go for it. All right, so I've got one end paper done, and I'm just making sure that it fits here, and it does pretty much. You could kind of see the first page of the book peeking out a little bit. I threw my hand up there. Who cares? You know, I'm not entering this into a competition. We're just here to have a good time. It'll work. It'll suffice. So I'm going to work on the back end paper right now, doing the exact same thing. All right, the end papers are ready to be tipped on. Like I said, I'm going to be using PVA glue for this. PVA dries very quickly, so you want to move quickly. I like to do one end paper at a time. Just use your waste paper. Give yourself about, maybe like 3 millimeters to work with on that folded edge. And when you're brushing, make sure you're brushing at an upward motion each time. You don't want to be putting glue beneath your waste paper or beneath the end paper, getting glue where it doesn't belong. This is going to just ensure you're only getting glue where you need it to. That's ready to go. And I wasn't careful enough about leaving enough like space for the camera to see here, but I am tipping it on, trying to get it underneath that shoulder, and that's what I'm leaning into with the bone folder here. I'm just so bad at this. I just totally block the view completely. When I show the back end paper, I show it more clearly. But yeah, I'm just trying to tuck that edge right underneath that shoulder. Get it snug in there, get it firm, and it is laying where it needs to lay. The edges of it are lining up with the page beneath it. So that's a good size end paper right there. Well cut, well glued. Let's do the back one now. Same deal. Give yourself about 3 millimeters to apply that glue. The gluing is probably my favorite part, one of my favorite parts of the binding process. It's very soothing. And there we go. There's me thinking, oh, you know what? Let me make this easier for the camera to see. Let me scooch it over a little bit. I'm learning as I go. And now you could better see a little bit what I'm doing with the folder to try to get it underneath that shoulder. Really just press it in there all the way to the end. The back end paper, you could see the white sticking out a little bit. I do end up trimming that. I can't show you the footage because it was completely unusable. I was totally blocking the camera the entire time, so nothing for you to even really see there. But that does get trimmed down, and you could see the front end paper is already, like the glue's already dry there. It's holding. The pages are sticking to it. So we're ready to go into the actual press to work on this spine a bit. I scraped off the old mesh that was on there and that glue, just so I can get better contact with my own glue, get some new fresh glue on there. That was another thing that I did off camera. It was just really time consuming, and I didn't want to bore you. So again, back to my favorite part, the gluing. Just isn't that just so satisfying to look at? Love to see that. I like painting. I like anything with like a brush. There's just something soothing about it. Almost every part of this hobby I find relaxing and enjoyable, except the last step, which is like casing in the text block. And I'll, if you've done it before, you know what I'm talking about, but that's the point of no return. But right here, just making sure I get a good coat of glue. I want all of these pages to be nice and sturdy. And we'll move on to adding in the end bands. At this stage, I wasn't sure yet what my cover design and what my cloth was going to, be like, what the colors were going to be. So I opted for a neutral tone, just cutting that down to size now. I just use the pre-manufactured end bands. I don't make my own. That's not that's not going to happen anytime soon for me. Apply glue. Once you've cut it down to size, apply it to the end band. If you need to add some more glue to the actual spine where the band's going to go, put it there as well. But just apply it and press it down. You can use your folder to apply a little bit more pressure, just to really make sure it's getting into the crevices there and it's really sticking to that spine. Apply a little bit of glue to the edges of the end band, especially if it's fraying a little bit. Just get those frays to kind of stay put. You don't want them to look like a mad scientist at the end, just like threads sticking up in the air. Then you do the exact same thing on the other side. Cut another band to the same size. Same process again. Make sure it looks good. Make sure they're not sticking out too far over the text block. Make sure they're centered. At this stage, it's not too late. You can still peel them up if you need to, but I got it this time. Now it's time for the mull, the scrim, whatever you want to call it. This is adding more support to the spine. Cut it down to size. And you just glue that bad boy right on top of there. Then comes the craft paper. You're going to cut some craft paper to the spine size and apply that as well on top of the mesh. I do not really know what the craft paper does. I believe it adds just even more reinforcement, I guess. But, the tutorials that I watch, they say add the craft paper, and that's one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the craft paper. I'm going to follow instructions. I do not know enough to not do that. So just follow the tutorials and you'll get yourself a book at the end. Again, rub it down with the folder. Make sure it's laying flat. I didn't measure the craft paper first, so I'm going to cut it to size after I've pasted it. You could, measure it to size beforehand, so you could skip this step. I'm just lazy. I don't like measuring things. I'm not so great at it. So if I can skip that step, I will. So I just cut it down to size afterward. All right, looking good. So now we're on to cutting the book cloth. I got this new cloth recently. It's like a linen pattern. It's pretty cheap. I use mostly cheap supplies. It looks really nice. It's very difficult to work with. I'm not a huge fan of it. It has a tendency to like snag. You see I've got like a piece of paper there I'm using to kind of measure. So again, I didn't show myself doing it, but to get your distance of like where you're going to put your book boards and how wide your cloth needs to be, wrap a piece of paper around your text block with the book boards in place, and just mark off with a pencil like the distance between the book boards, the spine width and all that, and then use that as your marker to know like how wide your cloth needs to be, just what you're working with. I did manage to get the cloth down to the size that I needed, but I got a lot of like frayed edges, unfortunately. Again, the cloth was just not very cooperative. But I went through with it anyway, because most of those frays, they're either going to be at the head or tail that get tucked in and hidden, or I could just kind of hide them when I place the cover papers down. I could just, just cover up whatever's sticking out. I could also I have an X-Acto knife that I can snip off some strays. My book boards, I also cut off camera, just because cutting stuff like that and measuring stresses me out, and with the added pressure of an audience, it would just go very poorly. So the width of the book board is the width of the from the shoulder to the edge of the front or back, plus 3 millimeters I did. And as for the height, it's just the height of the text block, plus I did 6 millimeters, I believe. And that should clear the end bands. It should also give a little bit of a lip over the ends of the actual text block, the edge. Then you take your book cloth. You just saw me go through and measure off where those boards are going to go. I marked them off with pencil as a guideline. I measured the space in between them using that indicator that I made earlier. I think it was like 34 millimeters in this instance. And now it's time to glue. I put down the glue inside the little box that I marked off there. And you'll put down your first board. I think I start with the back piece here, actually, which I don't usually do. I threw myself off when I did this. Again, once the camera's rolling, I get like really confused, which is for the best that I'm doing as little cutting and stuff as possible when the camera's on. Yeah, just paste it down, use your folder to make sure it's nice and flat, flip it over, push it from that side as well. And if you look closely, you could even see there's still some of those like little frayed edges, but I'll deal with those later. Back to the gluing, now to work on the front piece, the front cover board. Use your ruler or use some kind of straight edge just to make sure everything is aligned. It's particularly at the bottom. It's upside down right now, which is why it's on the top. But wherever the bottom of your bookcase is, use that as your straight plumb line. If the top edge is a little bit crooked, that's fine, because the book's not sitting on the top edge. It's sitting on the bottom edge. You don't want it rocking back and forth. So that's why you want that nice and straight. I put the board on upside down at first because, again, not paying attention, dropped it, got glue on it, but then I flipped it right around and we're fixing it. Great view of the back of my neck. So I fixed the focusing issue. I at least fixed that. I'm also getting distracted by a movie that I'm watching while I'm doing this. I was watching Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight. Very fun 90s film, a lot of puppets full of goo, and Billy Zane. Good Billy Zane role. One of probably my favorite Billy Zane role that I've seen. Anyway, back to this. I've got the boards in place, and now just going to cut down to size the top and bottom. Switched over to my X-Acto knife here because this particular cloth reacted better to the X-Acto than it did to the box cutter. I primarily work with a box cutter. I just like the way that it feels a bit more. The X-Acto knife feels too limp. I don't know, like it just And you see it fell apart when I dropped it there. I'll fix that off camera. I feel like I'm going to snap the X-Acto knife when I use it. That's why I hesitate to use it. Now I'm creating the spine stiffener. So right in between the book boards that are glued onto that cloth, that big white space, I'm going to place a piece of like kind of thick cardstock. Basically, if you could use thick cardstock, thin cardboard here. If you got like a cereal box that's going in the garbage, you could cut off a piece from the cereal box. Doesn't really matter. I have this like flexible board that I got from FedEx when I picked up some print orders recently. So this works pretty well. You just cut that down to size. It's got to be a little bit thinner than the white space that you see there. So you see me lining it up. This is me measuring for height. Doesn't need to be exact. This part you can fudge a little bit, just eyeball it. It just needs to provide some rigidity to that spine and roundness. So what I'm going to do here before I do anything else is, first I'm going to make sure it fits where it goes, and then I'm going to kind of fold it along its natural curl because I want to encourage a roll. I want to encourage a roundness to the spine stiffener. And you could eyeball it. Oh, I didn't fix the autofocus issue. What's up with that? But you can see it doesn't fill up the whole width. You just eyeball it, put it approximately in the center. And then you're going to paste. I almost pasted the wrong side, but PVA glue, again, I'm using PVA glue for this whole project. When you're working with just paper and cloth, PVA is perfectly fine. No need to get involved in methyl cellulose or wheat paste. I actually can't get involved with wheat paste. I'm allergic to wheat. I'm allergic to gluten. And working with that, so that would be bad. So I can't ever up my game to that level, unless I get sick. But yeah, you can see I'm just eyeballing it, getting that in there. Smooth it down with your folder. And it looks good. Edges are matching up, and the cloth is equidistant on like both sides into the front and back cover. Now it's time to do the turn-ins. So we're just pasting the top first and folding it over with the bone folder. The way that I like to do this to have just the best flattest stick is smooth down the center first, then work your folder into the hinges, really work it in there, and then spread out to the edges. It just ensures that your cloth doesn't bundle up and cause your hinges to pull closed narrower than you wanted them to. And then you just do it again on the bottom. Now it's time to cut the actual cover paper. I'm using this design here. I liked it. My partner also liked it, so I think it goes well with the spine cloth. I have a 12 by 12 inch sheet here, which I'm cutting vaguely down the center. These two halves are wide enough where I'll be able to do the front and back with just this one sheet, which is really convenient. Just lining up the edge, making sure that it is a good fit and that it's all going to just lay flat against each other. And then once I determine that it is, you guessed it, time for glue. Make sure you've got plenty of it. And I like to put the glue in this instance directly down on the board rather than on the paper, because I don't want to make the paper like wavy and curly too early. Didn't mean to rhyme there. Make sure you're getting the glue as close to the cloth edge as possible, but try not to get it on the actual cloth itself. If you do get on the cloth, it's not the end of the world. especially for like an amateur bind like this, but it will dry and it'll darken that cloth spot basically forever. From what I've seen, I've done it before. I do it almost every binding. It happens like by mistake. Here's me forgetting which of these was the straight edge, but figuring it out. Line it up, and those little frayed pieces from the cloth, I'm just gonna make sure that they are getting tucked underneath cover paper and not sticking out. I did a pretty good job of it on the front. I do a better job on the back. You'll see in the final product. But for the most part, negligible issue. Smooth it down with your folder, make it lay flat, no bubbles, and then PVA dries quick. You should be ready to go. I'm labeling in the interior, which is the front and back, because obviously I'm covering up my outside indicators right now with cloth that is identical, so I would otherwise lose track of which one is the front and which is the back. So just did that. And now we'll do the back cover as well. Same deal. And again, always like to do the gluing portion. Anything with a brush, very satisfying to see. I leave a little bit at the top uncovered with glue. Ugh, I missed the spot. Drives me nuts when I'm editing this. I'm looking at it like, oh God. Get that cover piece in place and smooth it down with the folder. Also use your folder to define your edges. I should have done it on the first one I did as well, but not the end of the world. You just do it after the fact. You want to define your edges because you're going to do your turn-ins next, and it's just going to make it easier to fold them over with those already in place. Well, before we do the fold-in, we're going to cut all of these edges down to size. Just use your ruler to do that. I'm back to using the box cutter here. It's what I'm comfortable with and never had an issue with it. Also be sure in the corners, in order to get these to fold over cleanly, 3 millimeters up from the corner, roughly, do about a 45-degree angle. Don't need to be exact. As you can see, I'm eyeballing it, and measurement is not my strong suit. So that's another thing where, you could just get comfortable with it and you just learn what works for you. So everything's cut down to size. Back to gluing. First, quick look just to make sure, looks cool. I always like the way it looks when it's not quite done yet. Again, I just like to see things just be even. Love to see a plan coming together. It's really satisfying. That's probably the most satisfying thing about this hobby, is just that end product looking exactly like you wanted it to, even when there was difficulties along the way. Start with the top or bottom edges first. I don't know why, but I think that was just in one of the tutorials that I had watched. I think it was from DAS Bookbinding, where he just specified always do the top or bottom first and then your edges last. I used way too much glue for some reason here, so I had to run off, grab a paper towel. You should always have like a paper towel or a towel handy when you are working with the glue, because you want to try to dab up excess. I use my fingernail there to tuck in that little corner piece, and then I do the exact same thing on the top again. And I do mean the exact same thing. I used too much glue again. You could see it spilling out, got all over my folder. So clean that off. Keep your tools clean, keep your hands clean. When I was getting into binding, some simple mistakes I would make early was not keeping my hands clean enough. and I would have glue on my fingertips when I worked with like book cloth, and it would get on the front cover or like the cloth that's visible on the cover. So just be mindful of that. Now I'm doing the side turn in. First turn in, for the longer ones, again, just start in the center, push outward toward the edge. That'll get rid of the excess glue and also make sure that it lays flat. Do the other side as well, the same way. This is where I start to get excited, and this is where I also start to get nervous. I start to get excited because, like, after these turn-ins, it finally starts to look like really what you planned. Like, oh, this is a bookcase. Like, I've done it. You know, I've made the thing. But then I get nervous because the next step is casing in the text block, and that is the most nerve-wracking thing about this hobby. But for now, you revel in how good your case looks, especially when it's nice and even. Oh, look at that, nice and even. I don't always get it super nice and even. Like I said, not great with measurements. So when it comes out like perfect, I'm happy. Take your text block, you just place it in there, do a preliminary check to make sure like where it's going to sit, make sure that you didn't mess up your measurements, because it's not too late at this point. You could always build a new case, but once you case this in, then that makes things a lot harder to fix. So here we go, we're ready to case in. I got some tracing paper in between my end paper. I know tracing paper is not the same thing as like moisture release paper, but whatever, man, we're not fancy here. This time, glue directly down on the paper, so you gotta work quickly. Holding as tightly as I can with those two fingers to make sure the text block does not shift. Try to get some glue under the fingers as well. You want full coverage. You see, I off camera wiped it on paper towel, and then very gently make sure you are extending your hinge all the way and just laying flat. And you can kind of see right away. If you misalign it, you'll be able to kind of tell, and you'll have a few seconds to fix it. But that looked good, so went right over to the back, working quickly, getting the glue down. Make sure when you're ready to fold over, extend the hinges all the way, really push it down, nice and flat. A good squeeze. It's looking all right so far. Get it into the press as soon as you can. Put a good amount of pressure on it just to make sure it takes, and then leave it in there. I left it in there for a few hours. I got antsy. You could probably leave it overnight, but I always get antsy, so I took it out, and here's what it looks like. It's a book. We did it. I'm really happy and satisfied with how it came out. I'll walk you through just some areas of note about it that I want to highlight. First, the corners. I added these little like metal corner protectors. I just got these. They're really neat. They just slide right on. The cover and spine cloth connection is pretty good on the front. It could be a little bit cleaner, honestly, if I want to be really picky. But on the back, it's really smooth. You could barely even feel where they intersect. It's like just really perfectly smooth finish. Over here, it's a little choppy, which is a bit of a bummer. But again, not too upset about it. I didn't notice this until I was done with the bind, but only the top edge of the pages is gilded. I don't know what that's about. And I did not do anything to change the pages, obviously, because I don't have the equipment for that. I've never done painted pages, so I don't know if I would have even been able to do it well. But just something in your own projects. Keep an eye out for that. If you ever want to, adjust the actual edges, you can paint them or do something like that. The end bands are sitting pretty much exactly where I want them to. I didn't want too much headspace above or below them, so I got it really exactly where I wanted. As for The end papers, they are sitting squarely exactly where I want them to, which is great. And the pages within are holding firm. I still wouldn't, manhandle this book. Pages are still very brittle, but I did fix up a lot more tears on the interior that you can see here. Again, that tape, hopefully it'll fade over time, but it's archival, and it is what it is. Back end paper, the same. It's a little bit cockeyed there, but who cares? Not too worried about it. For the most part, sits pretty flat. I also like that it throws up perfectly. Like it's not when you open it, when you open the front and the back together like this, they're not pulling. This one's not pulling it more so than this one. It is perfectly centered. And if you look straight down, you could even see like the design is like mirrored, which is great. It's truly perfectly centered. I really nailed everything there, which is great. I'm not going to lay the actual text block flat open because again, very brittle. But there's one more thing about this book I wanted to show you, because obviously there's no text on here. This is just a bland, blank book. I don't have the tools or the talent to do any kind of like painting on here, or I don't have like a vinyl cutter to cut like a spine vinyl for this. So what I like to do instead is make dust jackets. I skipped over this process in the video because it's literally just like, I don't know, it's just going into Canva and making a dust jacket. I could do maybe a separate video one day, specifically on the technique that I use and like how I do it in Canva. But I thought I'd kind of save you that. But here's the dust jacket I made for it. So it is a Seascape by Vincent van Gogh. I tried to find something that, again, fit the theme of the book. So Gulliver gets shipwrecked. So I found something with a little boat, a little sailboat on it, and choppy waters. And it fits really nicely. I cut it down to size. So the way that I do dust jackets, I start with a 17 by 11 sheet canvas, and I mark off. I measure, how wide is the front cover, how wide is the spine, how wide is the back cover. Add 2 inches for the turn-ins, and then in Canva, I just mark off, okay, I've got 5.5 inches for the front cover. The next 1.5 inches is for the spine. The next 5.5 inches is for the back cover. And then I just work within there to try to get the text centered. I was actually a smidge off on this one because I second guessed myself. But the spine, as you can see, very well centered. I just go through a bunch of fonts, see which one you like the most. And it's great. I actually think it's a really cool addition to the book. If you're interested in what material I use to print it, I just do all my printing through FedEx. This is 87-pound gloss cardstock. You can probably also do a photo gloss instead, a little bit more expensive. But as long as it folds and it doesn't create that like white crease, you can, do whatever you want. Play around with it, print a few off, see which one works for you. I like the 87-pound cardstock. I like the way that it feels. It's not exactly like a book cover, like a dust jacket that you would get at a bookstore, but for a homemade project like this, I really like it. So there you go. This is the new and improved Gulliver's Travels. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of it, and I hope this maybe inspired you to try your own project. Thank you very much for spending some time with me today, but now it's time to get back to making books.